Okay, I've decided on a different stone to be used for the eyeball. This particular stone appeals to me more than the original. The stone is petrified wood. I guess you would call it moss agate. I'm not sure. If anybody knows for sure, let me know. I'm going to measure it right now for the bezel. And what I normally do is I'll take my calipers, and it doesn't matter if they're zeroed out, but just by habit, you should zero your calipers before you use them. What I'll do is I'll place one of the jaws on the base, and then I'm going to adjust it until I can see that what I've chosen, the height of the bezel I've chosen, is going to actually cover all parts of the stone. There's different ways of doing this. You can add a third to the shoulder or girdle or whatever that straight up and down part is, but I just prefer to eyeball it. In this case, it comes out to 4.40 millimeters. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lock my calipers, and I'm going to take this measurement and use it to scribe a line on a sheet of copper, and I'll go ahead and cut that out. Alright, we'll be right back. Okay, I have my sheet of copper here, and I've got my calipers. And all I'm going to do is just take it, rest one of the jaws on the copper sheet, and just gently scribe a line across the sheet of copper. Okay, and let me go ahead and just do it this way because there's a little hiccup there. There we go. Now, I'm not super careful about how long it is. I'm only interested that it's longer than it needs to be and not shorter. So I've already kind of rolled the cabochon over this, and it ends up somewhere in here. I've got plenty of room to play with. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and I'll be right back. So I've gone ahead and cut my strip of copper, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to anneal it so that I can bend it around the cabochon easily. Before I anneal it, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can straighten it out as much as possible. This strip was cut from the same side that I'd cut another bezel from, and well, I don't exactly cut them perfectly straight, so I need to just make a little adjustment here before I put the torch to it. The whole idea here is to turn this strip of copper cherry red, or actually, a kind of a dull cherry red, and then I'm going to quench it, and it should be nice and malleable. There we go. That's about what I need right there. It looks good. Take this and quench it, and that should do it. I'll just clean off some of this fire scale, and it should be good and workable. I'm going to take a little 220 grit sandpaper and just lightly clean it up. Because what I'm going to do next is solder this bezel wire together to form it into a perfect circle, or at least a circle that I can then solder it onto the backing. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my cabochon, or eyeball, whichever we want to call it, and basically start here and start forming it around. Now what I want to be sure that I'm doing is is bending the bezel wire over the top. I want it to form on the base. So I just take my fingernails and I wrap it underneath. And also what helps too is if I get some tweezers, I can make sure that I'm not bending it over, and I'll show you what I mean. See this piece right here? I don't know if you can see that, but it's bent up, so I want to straighten that up. And I'll just go ahead and finish just like that. And once I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and take my marker, which I should have already had ready, and put a little cut line, or a little cut dot right there. Okay? Now I want to cut this as square as I possibly can. So I'll go ahead and line my shears up, and I might want to cut it a little bit long because I'm going to want to make sure I've got the other side squared also. Okay, now take some pliers and bend that flat. And that looks pretty good and square. Now this one is not. So what I'm going to do, hopefully I've got a little extra wire, and I do. I'm going to cut this one perfectly flush, or square. Alright. Now I should have two flat, perfectly squared ends that should meet right there, and they do. It looks good. Now let me make sure it fits the bezel, and I don't have to try. It's okay to make it slightly smaller, but you don't really want to see. This is a little bit big, so I'm actually going to trim just a fraction of a millimeter off one of these ends, and I guess I'll do it off of this one. You can always make it bigger by hammering it on a ring mandrel, but you can't make it smaller. Well, you can't make it smaller very easy anyway. So let's take another look, and that is going to be perfect. Can you appreciate that? Can you see that? Let me zoom in a little bit. Whoops. Sorry about that. Can you see how that is? That's going to work out. That's going to work out just fine. That's going to work out just fine. All right. So now that I've measured it, I'm ready to solder this the bezel wire and solder it so that it makes a perfect little circle. And I want to take a look at it all the way around. I kind of want it to lay flat, but I can correct some of that a little bit later, and that's pretty darn flat. And I've got a good little join right here, which I'm going to go ahead and solder. I've got my bezel, my copper bezel, set up so that I have it suspended here in this little makeshift third hand. What I'm going to use is hard silver solder. Kind of hard to say. So I'll just cut a little piece, or see if I've got a piece that's already cut. And I do not, so I'll take a little piece here and just get my nippers. And I don't need much. I don't need very much. I'll just put it right there and get my flux ready. It's just a borax base flux. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of flux right here, right there, and a little bit underneath. And I'm going to go ahead and heat that up and get the dry up the flux a little bit so that it's not bubbling when I'm getting ready to solder. So I'll just run the flame over it, and then you can see it bubbling. And I'm going to look at it and see if I need to add any flux. I'm going to put a little bit more right there. There, good. Now I'm going to take my flux brush, pick up my little solder chip, and just lay it right there. You can see it. It wants to bounce around. I think we'll be alright. I'll get my solder pick just in case, so I can move it back if I need to. So I'm just going to run a little flame over this. It looks like it's good, and I'm going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's moving on me a little bit. Let me move it back. There we go. And move it back and forth, and it should flow right about now. Perfect. Looks good. Looks good. Sorry about that. I forgot to turn the camera on. What I did is the bezel didn't really fit the cabochon. It was too small. So what I did is I took it, and it's still a lot tighter than I would like it. I'm going to push this cabochon out, and I'm going to go ahead and stretch this, stretch the bezel wire. Yeah, it's way too tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide it on my ring mandrel, and I'm going to just tap lightly all the way around. Make it one complete revolution, and then go ahead and take it off and put it back on the other way, and then go all the way around again. What this does is this actually stretches the bezel wire, and I hopefully will get a better fit. And that is perfect. See, it's snug, it fits snugly, but yet it's not binding. So that's gonna work out just fine. Now, and it's also fitting the cabochon nicely. So at this stage, I'm ready to solder it. I'm ready to solder it on a backing. So the next step is to cut out a piece of copper that will act as the bezel back. And so it doesn't need to be very large. Probably, if I trace this out, I can always trim it later. And I think if I cut that out, I can trim all this this nasty stuff off of here, and I think it'll be good. So the key thing here is to make sure that your bezel fits your stone, and by that I mean it fits the contours of the stone, in this case round, and that it the bezel actually sits flat on the bezel backing. So let me go ahead and cut this out and we'll see what we have. So I've gone ahead and cut the bezel back out, and I took a plastic mallet and flattened it out. Now I'm setting this on here to look all the way around, and it doesn't fit absolutely 100% perfect, but it's doggone close enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up, and I'm going to clean up this bezel back, and we'll go ahead and cut some medium solder. Actually, I could probably use soft, and I think I will use soft solder. I'll cut some pieces of soft solder to go ahead and not weld, but solder this bezel ring on the bezel back. So I'll go ahead, take that, just clean it up a little bit. I just need to clean it up in the area where it's actually going to be. That looks pretty good. And we'll set that back down there, and that looks good. So let me go ahead and cut some pieces of solder, and I'll be right back. Cutting my solder, I want to be sure that I have plenty, and I'll put them pretty close to the minute hands on the 5-minute marks on a clock. So I've got, let's see here, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Let me go ahead and cut a couple more. 11 and 12. Okay. So with that done, I'm going to go ahead and flux my there we go. That looks good. Now I'll take each one and drop it in there. I'll come back here in a minute and arrange them, and you know, it really doesn't matter how I arrange them, they're gonna move once the liquid flux, the flux starts to bubble. And actually, it looks like that's going to be enough. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. 10, yeah, looks like 9. Let me go ahead and move them to get my pick and move them kind of equally spaced. I'll see after I do this how many get out of here. How many I'll need. Yeah, it looks like maybe one more. Let's put it right there. Okay, that looks pretty good. So, let me take this. Oh, by the way, if you notice, I've changed I changed soldering surfaces. I was using some homemade charcoal, and you know, it's the first time I ever used it, and the son of a gun stays lit. So I don't know if I like that. I don't know if anybody has any ideas out there. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I use that charcoal, and I do have a fan going. Okay, I do have a fan going, so that kind of fans the flame. You know what? One more. Right there. I'm going to move the camera so that you can see what I meant. Yeah, I guess you can kind of see from there. Let me see if I can zoom in on it. And that's kind of what I'm looking for right there. And I'm going to go ahead and move this over to the fire brick, and we'll start the heating process. Okay, that noise you hear in the background, that's my smoke / fume extractor. It's just a fan that I have connected. I'll see if I can move it over there and show you. Where is it? Oh, there it is, right there. It's just a fan, and what it does is it sucks out the fumes as I am soldering. Let's see if I can get this back to where it was. That looks pretty good. Applying heat, the little pieces of solder are probably going to want to jump around. Let me adjust this flame a little better. Don't want too much. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to go ahead and just put a little heat here. They are jumping around, but they're not jumping around too bad yet. Wow, it looks like they're going to stay pretty still. That's a first. And I'm just going to go around round and round until eventually they're going to melt. That looks good. That looks real good. I'm thinking, actually, it doesn't look that good. I've got a gap here. I need to draw that down. Oh boy, not good, not good, not good, not good. Not good. Let's see what happens. Well, folks, that's what you call a fail. That is a fail. What happened is a couple of things. Number one, the heat bowed the piece of copper backing. Number two, even though I used hard solder to solder the bezel, the excessive heat that I put on melted the bezel union where the two pieces of the bezel met together, and it opened. So I don't know if I can actually recover this piece. We'll see. And well, I mean, if it doesn't work, I'd start all over again. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, I went ahead and quenched this and put it in the pickle and cleaned it up a little bit. And at this point, I can't really tell if it's a complete fail or not. What I should see and what I'm going to be looking for is a little silver meniscus all the way around the bezel. And what that tells me is that there's a good fusion between the base and the bezel wire. Now in this case, there's only a meniscus from here to here, and then there's nothing in here, an open bezel ring, nothing in here, no, not much at all. The only place that this is holding on is a piece right back here and a piece right back here. So what I'm going to try to do, I don't have anything to lose except a little time, is I'm going to try to solder two things. One, solder this bezel wire back together, and two, see if I can somehow put pressure on this so that when I heat it up again, hopefully the solder will reflow and it will seal itself. So we'll see what happens. Let me go ahead and set up for it. I have to give this some thought. Okay, I have no idea if this is going to work, but it's worth a try. What I've done is I went ahead, like I said before, I pickled it, cleaned it up, fluxed it. I put additional flux, and I'm putting it on a soldering grate. And I have my third hand here with a railroad spike holding that bezel ring down. I've also, and I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I've also put a little tiny piece of soft solder right where the bezel, the two bezel pieces meet. And what I'm going to do, I'm hoping that I'm going to heat it from underneath this time, and I'm hoping the solder will reflow, and that soft solder will melt and fuse that joint, and we'll live happily ever after. Well, let's see what happens. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to heat it from underneath. And I'm kind of just moving the flame around. Got my soldering pick. I see the flux starting to bubble. I've got my soldering pick ready in case that little strip of soft solder decides to jump, which it doesn't look like it's going to. It's kind of okay. I can see the copper starting to turn color, and we'll see if this we'll see what happens. Turn the heat up a little bit. Might as well, got nothing to lose. I don't see it flowing yet. I see it turning a little red. Okay. Oh, I saw that. Okay. Let's see what happens here. Oh man, I'm starting to see a meniscus. Don't take it too far, Abel. Don't get greedy. Let's see what happens. Let's let that cool down a little bit. I didn't see any flow. Of course, I don't have any over there. Okay. Let's take a look. I see a meniscus most of the way around. All right. All right. Okay, let's quench it, pickle it, and see what I got. Well, after a few attempts, I went from 25%, approximately 25% fusion around the bezel to about 75%. And then on the third time, I got it 100%. Actually, it was mostly luck. But it looks like it's going to turn out all right. I have it in the pickle right now. I'm about to pull it out and clean off any fire scale. And I'm ready to set the stone. So let me go ahead and pull it out of the pickle. And here it is. So, not bad. Not bad for all the torture I put it through. It is 100% fused all around the bezel. There's a small meniscus all the way around. I don't know if you can appreciate it from there. Let me bring it up a little closer to the camera. But there is a meniscus all the way around. Now let's clean it up and set the stone in. Get a little of this fire scale off. And dry it out completely. And hopefully that stone will just fall right in there. Okay. So let's see how it goes. Yes, ma'am. Right in. Just perfect. All right. At this point, what you can see is how well you form the cabochon. I did pretty good, but it's not perfectly symmetrical. You have to understand, these cabochons were made by hand, they're not made by machine, and so there's going to be a little bit of asymmetry, but it's all within limits. This is going to work out just fine. Let me go ahead and get my bezel pusher. I don't know what you call it exactly. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to start working my way around, just easing it in. And I like to hammer set. I like to get a hammer and just gently tap. Once I get it started, just gently tap all the way around. It's just easier for me. That's the way I've always done it. So, alright. Alright, so now I'm ready to set it with my hammer. Let's see if I can get a better shot of this. Let me get a different angle. Be right back. So now I'm going to just tap, tap, tap all the way around. Hold it with my little finger, and I'm not trying to do it all at once. I'm just going to gently form it around, and it's always a little harder at the joint there. And this is just takes a little time, but I'm always pleased with the results. Well, almost always. You let the hammer do the work. You just the weight of the hammer is all it takes. You don't have to put any muscle behind it. You know, and people sometimes wonder, well, aren't you going to damage your stone? Well, yeah, you run the risk of damaging your stone if you're not careful, but as long as you keep that bezel wire between your forming tool and your stone, you're okay. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off and finish this, and I'll show it to you when it's done. I'll go ahead and get a small needle file and just kind of clean up. For example, this where the bezel meets, the bezel wire joins together, I want to smooth that out. Where's my loop? Oh, here it is. So I want to look at it and just kind of see if I can get it flush together. I don't really want to stretch that up too much. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up, and I'll be right back. Taking a little 220 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going all the way around, nice, just kind of touching up here and there. Some of the copper backing will be seen through the eye, so I want to make sure that it's nice and clean and it looks good. So I'll just It's going to go around the whole eye. And it doesn't need to be polished. It just needs to be kind of uniform. Alright, that looks pretty good. Okay, it's time to form the bezel and backing plate into the eye. I've got to decide where it's going to go. Let me get some light in here so we can see what's going on. Let's see, can you see that okay? Yeah, I think so. What I need to do is I need to just push this in, form it, and kind of decide where I want that eye. Do I want it dead center, or do I want it slightly towards the inside? I kind of like that right there. Janelle, what do you think? Good. Looks good, okay? So at this point, I just kind of hold on to it, and I'm going to take my Sharpie, and I'm going to scribe a line all the way around, and that's going to be my primary cut line. And what I mean by that is that I'll trim it further a little bit later. So there it is. Now what I want to do now is I want to get a couple of register lines. Just these a little line here and a little line there, and one over here, and right there. Now I think I'm ready. I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to put these lines a little further in, a little further in. There, that looks pretty good. And I think we're ready to cut. Now this cut doesn't have to be exact. I mean, just so long as it's pretty much in the ballpark, because I may end up trimming part of the skin, but I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes. Right now I just need to get the majority of it out of the way. I really like these shears. They cut nice. They cut nice. I'm not even sure what the brand is. Made in Germany. I don't know. I guess they're not. I guess they're not so proud that they put their name on it. It must have been on the packaging. I don't know, but they're really good. So put that here. Okay, and I can already tell I got it backwards. Here we go. Just like this. And right there. Okay. The next step will be to rivet the backing to the skin. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to prepare for that right now. Okay, I went ahead and took the Sharpie and I made a couple of marks. I'm going to go ahead and drill an 1/8 inch hole. I'm going to punch it first, put a little punch mark, and drill an 1/8 inch hole top and bottom. And that's going to basically hold the eye in place until I have time to cut the leather and make the strap. So let me go ahead and drill these out, and I'll be right back. I use a round ball as kind of a backing. Helps me keep from flattening out the skin, and that works pretty good. There's that one. Good deal. Next, I want to take the eye, line up my register marks. Looks pretty good right there. Looks pretty good right there. And I'm going to go ahead and take my Sharpie and drill, make a little mark on the copper in the back. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and drill these holes, and then I should be ready to use the riveting tool. So I'm going to line up the holes. Okay, they seem to line up pretty good. And I'm going to load my riveting gun with copper rivets. And I'm going to push it through. Goes in nicely, and start the process. Okay. Oops. There we go. Looks good. There's one. Now let's go ahead and do the second one. Put that in there. Good. All right. Okay, that's good. Pump it. It's ready. There we go. Alright. That does it. Came out alright. Now all I'm going to do is trim around the edges and form it a little bit, and I'll be ready for the next step. Okay, that concludes part 4. I have one more part coming. This is the attaching of the eye itself to a leather strap to complete, basically to complete the process. And that's coming. Listen, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your patience, and hope you enjoyed the video.